Good afternoon, everyone. The time is 4:35. This is the Education and Economic Development Committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. A copy of the agenda for this meeting can be found on the county website under the tab for the legislature. We ask that you please silence your phones, electronic devices, and at this time, I would ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kelly, may we have roll call, please?
Fagion?
Here.
Levon?
Present.
O'Donnell?
Here.
Ramos? Here. Fiskevich?
Here.
Sassy?
Here.
DeGanga? Here. Menuda?
Here.
8 present.
Excellent. Everybody's here. All right. Let's see here. So have Stephen M. Gross, Director, Office of Economic Development, as item number 1. Can I have a motion in a second? Zananga and Lujan. Sir, you have the floor.
Hey, how's everybody
How are you?
doing?
Welcome.
First one is that. That's right. We'll get you out of here before 7 o'clock tonight.
If not,
So a couple of things I want to start off with. Export Week starts the first week of May. That's important because in Orange County, we have a foreign trade zone, as we've talked about. We're going to be doing a webinar. I sent out a flyer. So here it is for everybody. May 2nd, it's going to be really interesting. We're going to have Joan Canlian, excuse me. She's the director of the Westchester U.S. Export Service Center, as well as Elizabeth Whiteman, who's a senior analyst for the U.S. Foreign Trade Zone Board, are going to be part of this webinar. We're putting it out to as many organizations as we can through online platforms like the county website and the Chamber of Commerce and Facebook and social media. So we're encouraging people to come and learn more about our foreign trade zone because we're getting a lot of calls, as I've mentioned over the last couple of weeks. And most recently, the calls are a little bit different than they have been in the past. It's companies that are doing international trade that are looking to bring in products and store them in a place somewhere in Orange County in the foreign trade zone for a period of time before they go to market. But we don't have anything like that in Orange County right now. We've got 4 or 5 companies in here, Minolta, Konica, these big companies that they deal with their own products. They're not dealing with outside other companies' business. So in talking to this gentleman, he's actually going to come up. Connor from the partnership and I are going to meet with him in a couple of days and see if there's a warehouse or facility that might work to basically create a foreign trade zone center in the county somewhere. It's a good opportunity. The calls keep coming in. I've mentioned the swim place in Port Jervis. Didn't know about the foreign trade zone, interested, but when they learn about it, they think we have a warehouse that's operating as a foreign trade zone that they can just drive up to and put their materials in, and we don't have that. But maybe it's something that we should have. So we're looking to see if there's an opportunity for a business model with regard to the foreign trade zone. So that's really good stuff. I also want to hand out this letter to everybody right now, talk about some serious business. In the town of Wallkill, I think we all read a week or 2 ago about Ball Container Company potentially closing down. We did talk to some of the individuals there about Ball. We don't want to lose any jobs in the county, obviously. They were citing issues related to the age of the facility, the ability to retrofit it. We think there might be some other issues going on with labor along those lines. But Maureen Hallahan, who's sitting behind me, and I drafted this letter. Read it into the record really quick. It's to Mr. John D. Campbell, Vice President of Government Operations. Dear Mr. Campbell, for more than 50 years, Ball has been a good employer and corporate neighbor. As you can imagine, the entire community is very surprised and disappointed to learn that Ball is strongly considering shutting down its operations at the Wallkill plant in the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2023. The Orange County Economic Development Team invites you and your team to meet with us to discuss the current situation and how we may be able to assist. It is our hope that you are open to explore alternative options and learn about available programs and aid of which you may or may not be aware. The reasons stated to local officials surrounded the age of the current plant and site limitations. We would love to learn more. Know that there are a variety of alternate sites in Orange County. Some are shovel ready, others have structures ready to be customized. We would include Empire State Development to explore any potential state incentives to help retain your operations in Orange County. We'll also include the Orange County Industrial Development Agency, as these agencies may be able to provide economic aid with facility and equipment upgrades. The 177 town of Wallkill Ball employees and their families are our neighbors, relatives, and friends, and our goal is to help them retain their jobs. Please let us know your availability and we will coordinate a good time. Want to put that in the record. Obviously, important stuff. We don't want to lose any jobs in the county, and there are other opportunities for that facility to operate if they've outgrown that one. I want to move on. Gentleman in the back of the room, Mr. Jin Zhang. Mr. Zhang, just want to say hello. Thanks. Mr. Zhang and I spoke this morning. He's the owner of the Home 2 Suites in Middletown, put a lot of investment into the Middletown area. But he's also part of the Ganjing. You're going to have to help. Thank you. Thank you. And that means clean in China. And Ganjing is what they're doing is actually taking the old county Fulton Plaza building. If anybody remembers that in Middletown, it's the one that was on stilts that had all sorts of problems with it, and renovated it. And they've actually put in a modern state-of-the-art facility that's going to really be a technological driver for the internet going forward. Based on their whole premise, they're looking to have a well-balanced internet space free of violence, erotic materials, criminal activities, and harmful content. This will be a clean activity space for kids to go, which is a really neat opportunity and, being developed right here in Middletown, New York. So interesting stuff. Just want to welcome Mr. Zhang to Orange County, and we look forward to working with him with a lot of his future projects that he's got coming in as well. Aside from that, I just want to mention one more thing. They've hired 80 people so far in Middletown. They plan to hire another 100 next year and up to another 200 the year after that. So big investment. Aside from that, they've also worked recently with Adams because the Home 2 Suites is located right next to the Galleria and where the new Adams is going to open in Wallkill. They just hired 112 employees, which is really good. Looks like they're going to open in May or June. I know that's your end of the world, so Kathy's dealing with a little of that.
No, I'm not up there.
No, oh, you're not. I did not know that. So we're looking forward to Adams opening in Wallkill. I think everybody thinks it'll be a great opportunity for that whole area. Aside from that, economic development outreach continues. I was a guest speaker at the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors a week or two ago. We had over 100 people come from various counties. It was Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, myself, talking about all the economic activity going on throughout the Hudson Valley. And boy, I got to tell you, we're the envy of all the others. When they see what goes on here, they're really eating it up and trying to piggyback off of Orange County, which is a great opportunity. So we have a lot more outreach opportunities coming up. I'll be speaking in front of the Town of Newburgh Rotary Club on April 25th. I'll be facilitating the Montgomery Business Council's first breakfast meeting, which is coming up on April 27th. Here's a flyer from that we can pass around as well. And Leadership Orange has asked me as well to facilitate their economic development program with their class for 2023, which will be held in Warwick coming up in May 3rd. Our business assistance activities continue to move forward. We work with the health department. Kudos to the health department environmental health division, particularly Steve Gagnon and Peter Kelleher, worked hand in hand with us and Stephanie Johnson from Legoland to move ahead with permitting projects that we're moving forward for their new spray park. They finally got approved last week, so they're on target. Legoland opened April 1st, and we're looking for another successful season at Legoland. Aside from that, Planet Health Foods is in Port Jervis. We've had a great rapport with them in the food tech program with Jack Sepulveda at the college, looking to help that program move a little bit further. Thank you. So we're actually touring tomorrow. We've got a contingent going out. He's got some workforce issues we're trying to help with as well. And our goal is to move with the Planet Health Foods organization to try to strengthen their business, bring employees in, and provide these healthy quality foods that are being produced right here in Orange County. Lastly, I just want to leave you with a piece of good news. I've been asked to be on the board of Inspire. It's a great organization in the county. I think we've all heard about it, but they deal with the disabled population, and anything we can do to help our disabled individuals retain economic independence is a plus for the economy in Orange County. With that, I know my colleagues are here, so I will keep it short and ask if there are any questions.
There you go. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Next up, item 2, we have Bill Fioravanti, CEO, Orange County Industrial Development Agency, for a monthly update. May I have a motion in a second?
So moved. Second.
Luhan Stanga, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ready for it?
Welcome, yes, we are.
Okay, terrific.
Let's go.
I think I've been saying this every month, but this is going to be my shortest presentation. Because quite frankly, I was estimating probably 80% of my time the last few weeks has been on non-economic development work, lobbying, playing politics, things like that. I hate it. I absolutely abhor this work, but we've had an existential threat, in terms of what's going on with the proposal put forward by our state senator. So we're working against it. We've gotten a lot of support, and I'll touch on that. But that's what most of my work has been over this last month, frankly, is working on that.
We
So
talked about that last time, right?
exactly. So
Put trip hazards in front of you so you can't do your job.
exactly, absolutely. So let me just roll through here. First of all, we just have one set of meetings this month. We are doing our finance committee meeting right before our board of directors meeting. So we're doing both on Wednesday, starting at 4:30 p.m. downstairs. We're keeping all our meetings in the community room downstairs. So if anyone wants to join us, and a few legislators have in the past, we appreciate that for sure. Again, always down in the community room. Next, just an update on the proposed monitoring bill. Of course, is a bill introduced by Senator Skoufis that was kind of tucked into the New York Senate's budget proposal for the 2023-24 New York State budget. It has to, in order to become law, it of course has to be negotiated with the Assembly and the Governor's office. And that's all during the budget negotiations. Of course, we all know that the deadline, the original April 1st deadline has been moved back now twice. And it looks like today is the current deadline, but it looks like it will go back at least another week. So that will be ongoing. And at least that leaves time for, again, these calls we've made, for the letters that we've had sent up there to impress upon the governor just what a mistake this would be. So we're still working on that. We are getting mixed feedback on exactly, what the likelihood is of this passing. Certainly hearing a lot of negatives, but we're hearing some rumblings of just how hard the senator is pushing because he's submitted many bills before to try and really cut IDAs off at the knees, and he's had no luck. None of his bills have ever gone anywhere. His colleagues have never voted for that. So this is kind of an end around move to make this happen. And so I think he's pulling all the stops to make it happen. But I do want to thank the legislature, the full legislature, especially the fact that you had to have a special meeting to do that. But the resolution that you passed really meant a lot to our board of directors, our volunteers, of course, that have really taken the hits in terms of being called terrible libelous names. So it meant a lot, but also your specific opposition to this measure. And we also had other similar shows of support from the Orange County Partnership. Thank you to Maureen and her crew behind us. The Orange County Chamber, the Construction Contractors Association, the Construction Industry Council, and the Builders Contractors Association. So we've had those folks that care about the construction jobs that we make sure are local because of our local labor policy. They've shown their support in this time of real need for us, and we do appreciate that. So we'll keep you posted in the next week or two. By the time I'm in front of you, we'll certainly know what the outcome of that is. So speaking of oversight, just a couple other things related to that. First of all, the New York State Comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, he puts out an annual report on IDAs, and his came out just last week. And he did, I won't give too many other details. He talked about where incentives are going, more or less, what regions are providing the most incentives and things like that. But he also pointed out a number of IDAs and failures or shortcomings in their reporting or any other kind of operations. And he picked on a few that are in our area, but I will note that he found no issues with the Orange County IDA, nor did he last year in his report after this new administration cleaned things up. So maybe there's a lot of noise from elsewhere, but the authority's budget office and the New York State Comptroller's office, who already oversee us very closely, have had no issue with anything we're doing. So I do want to point that out. And also, we are required annually to submit Paris reports to the authority's budget office, and our last one was submitted before the March 30th deadline. So we continue to stay in full compliance with that. Just a couple other updates. I mentioned last month that we're doing a community survey, which is something I think is very, very important. It's our really attempt to put the word out there to the community, everyone that is a stakeholder in Orange County, that we want your input on the future of economic development. So we developed an online survey. It's on our homepage. If you go to ocnyida.com, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, community survey, and you click on that, or I provided the link in this report. So I really would appreciate if as many legislators as possible could partake in that. It really takes you less than 5 minutes, and it'll be, of interest, I think, I promise to all of you, because it's all about, what do we want more of? What types of jobs do we want more of? What do we not need as many of? What other directions should we be going? So we do want as much participation from the public and from our leaders as possible. So I do ask you to take a few minutes and complete that. Also, I'll be attending the annual meeting for New York State Economic Development Council. That has been very fruitful for me in the past. I was at their annual conference in Albany a couple months, especially with all the happenings we have going on. It's been really, really valuable to be able to lean on my colleagues and other resources out there in that community. And lastly, because this is something I've been reporting on often, our UTEP, our Uniform Tax Exemption Policy. I've been talking about a full review and revision coming up, and that it looks like it will be early this summer. As you know, we lost a board member. We're trying to recalibrate a little bit. We've had some of these other unexpected issues coming up, but that's still what our time frame is. So I know Mr. Cheney is asked about being involved in the process. Every time there's some movement or scheduling, whatever it might be, I'm going to make sure I tell you that. So right now we're looking at most likely June for that time frame, and I'll be reporting back on that. Lastly, as always, I just provide a quick summary of at least this administration's work in terms of incentive projects. We report on what we've approved and closed, what has been approved but not yet closed. We still have one in the pipeline that the board is considering incentives for, which is a Skinnell, an industrial developer that has a project in Wayanda. So that's a current snapshot of what we have in front of us. And again, I'm here for any questions that anyone may have.
Anyone? Legislator Cheney.
Yes, is there a draft yet of the UTEP?
Just the current UTEP, basically, that if you don't have a copy, I
I've
can
got
send it to you, right? And basically, I've been working with our council on identifying areas that we want to change, and also doing research with other UTEPs and finding out, for example, I've been talking about housing. How do we get there? How does the UTEP help us get there? So I've been looking at some other ideas of how they're doing that, as well as tech sectors and other things that we're talking about in this report.
So what's the process going to be in bringing it to the board and then the board making a decision?
So we'll probably, over the course of a couple of public meetings, we will probably have really interactive discussions about the UTEP. I'll go through a full summary and kind of break down the different areas, and I'm going to be initiating discussions about changes to the UTEP. So we'll be doing it over probably 2 to 3 public meetings, but then we have to have a public hearing. We actually have to hold, we'll get public input as well. So I think input from legislature, from our local municipalities, can come during that entire process. Can inform our discussions that we're having internally. When I say internally, publicly, but the organization itself. Exactly. It can inform those. It can be during those. It could be at the end of those, and it could be during the public hearing or any time in between. Of course, the communication with me.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm certainly looking, especially from your interest and others. I want to make sure this is an open process and that we communicate all the way through.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My pleasure. Anyone else? Very well.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate you. You're a man of your word.
You see that? Trying to leave room for the partnership.
All righty. Item 3, last item, last but not least, Maureen Hallahan, President CEO, Orange County Partnership, for a quarterly update. Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. I'd like to bring my colleague Connor Eckert, he's our VP of Business Attraction, up with me because he's going to be my closer today. I haven't seen you, and I only come quarterly to these meetings, but he
Absolutely.
just came back from a very large conference, and I want you to hear about from his lips because it gives us a broader scope of what site selectors are looking for in our county.
Fair enough. I just need a motion, a second, please. Done. Thank you, Luan and Spinega. Okay.
Okay, so we did have it for the wall here for the presentation, but I don't know, are we gonna get it up or no? You think so? Oh, cool, good. Thank you. So I'll just get started anyway, because you do have the sheet in front of you.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we wanted to show you on paper is just sort of the scope and the size of some of the developers that are here. Again, our reports don't change that quickly. The cycle time for the projects that we work on, usually about 18 to 24 months, depending on, what type of endeavor they're embarking on. But these are some big names nationally. And when Steve Gross mentioned earlier that we're the envy of our colleagues, we hear it a lot, not only just in the Hudson Valley, but throughout the state. So we have some of the big guys here looking at our county to grow. And just, just to talk about, just a shift in what we've seen over the last 4 years is that just about every project, every end user that came to us before, it was a build to suit project. They would grab the land and then they would go through the approvals and then they would build their company. They would build their facility. Now the shift has changed so much on spec that that list of developers that you saw on page 1, these guys are out there with their money. Even though supply chains are short, even though interest rates have gone up, they're moving forward with their projects, and we have not lost one, even with those two things that I mentioned happening around us that are scary. I mean, it's hard to get product to build some of these buildings and to finish some of these jobs. So also major industrial activity continues to cluster around the interstate highways. That's a no-brainer for you guys. A lot of the growth is always near the highways. And Newburgh and Walk Hill and Montgomery is a clear example of where they're clustering right now. And national tenants, they're still here. They're showing interest in Orange County. Because of our location, some of it is, some of the savvy relationships that we have and the work that we do when we're out there. But I'm going to show you some examples of things that are flying in the door right now. And that's coming up in the next couple of slides. Steve and Bill mentioned Amazon. It's happening in Wayanda. They got their full approvals. They're moving on. They used a lot of local consultants. They're searching for their GC now, meeting with all of these local general contractors throughout the area right now and doing their assessments on who's going to construct that building. It's a big one. And that building is really going to carry the big items for Amazon. This is our third Amazon, right? We have the last mile in New Windsor. We have the big million+ square footer in Montgomery. But this one is like those huge items like canoes and refrigerators and things like that. That's what's going to be in Wayanda if anybody's asking you. And they plan on breaking ground this summer, so it's upon us. Real proud of the fact that the DRI, the downtown revitalization, that's sort of the award that everybody is waiting to hear in the Hudson Valley. So they choose, one municipality or one in a smaller municipality, and Orange County got all of it this year. So Port Jervis won the big lion's share of it with the $10 million award, and Chris Young is going to head up that committee to focus on where that money and how that money will be spent. She's selecting all of her committee members. When the city of Middletown was awarded the $10 million, the very first DRI, I served on that committee. I believe Connor Eckert is going to be serving on the Port Jervis committee. I will be serving on the town and village of Walk Hill, Cornwall committee, and they won the $4.5 million. So it was like all of the money for DRI came to Orange County this year. So we're real proud of that. 17486, a project that you've stood behind for a long time. The governor at the same day at the DRI also announced that $30 million was going to go for new infrastructure investments for 17486. Exactly how that money is going to be spent is in the details that will follow. We don't really know.
Looking forward to hear that.
Right, we're looking forward to hearing that too. But that's forthcoming. We are starting to see some opposition. You're going to hear from the Catskill Mountain Keepers. They're out there in force. They don't want any more cars on the road. They don't want the highway expanded. So now we're starting to mobilize the pro team because those public hearings are going to happen and we got to be ready. So here it comes.
The same amount of cars, it'll just make it easier.
It'll make
to
it
move them,
safer.
So
People get killed on that road, so it will make it safer. But we've all stood together on the growth of that corridor and we just have to remain, diligent to make that happen. I'm going to go through some of the details of the projects that I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to let you Connor talk about some of the big picture stuff that he's seeing out there. So of our pipeline of attractions, 20 are in manufacturing. Of the 40 that are active, 20 are in manufacturing. So you see, even though we read all the time about the distribution, only 8 are in distribution right now. And they're big. I mean, there's 12 million square feet of manufacturing distribution under spec development right now going on in Orange County. So it's happening. But here's what I found interesting. If you're looking at the screen or you're looking at your sheets, wherever that is, this whole clean, green energy space is flying through the door. I'd love to say it's just because we're brilliant and we're going after them. We are, and we're marketing. But I will tell you, some of these projects that are coming in, manufacturing of clean energy projects, looking at sites throughout the Hudson Valley, very different in their components. Some of them are building components for windmills or turbines and things like that. We just recently submitted a dozen sites for Project Clean Build. Project Breeze is the one you've read and seen about, the RWE National Grid marriage that's over in on the Hudson River, straddling New Windsor and Newburgh. That project is continuing to try to move forward. We're expecting an announcement to see if our project actually won it statewide. And we think we're in a good position, but we won't know that for sure until May. But the work is the same. We've been killing ourselves for that one.
Be a great project.
Oh, it would be so wonderful to have all those jobs. Another one is Project Mayflower. It's a Canadian company seeking to expand to the United States to produce energy storage. So you're going to hear a lot about battery. You're going to hear a lot about charging stations and the components that go into them and what will be built there. So these projects, you'll see the, kind of a pattern here. And then Project Tango, it's thermal heating products that they're manufacturing, 100 manufacturing and skilled jobs for that project. And we also submitted several sites, and the site tours are getting set up now for these. So that's a cluster that is a little bit new since the last time I saw you. Certainly something that we desire, but now that's actually happening. Another attraction project, this is an international manufacturer of very popular ethnic food products. They're big in Whole Food stores, Walmart stores. You would recognize the brand. I'm not at liberty to tell you the brand right now. But this is also another company I've talked to you over the years about clustering of industries that, and that come together to our community. So you've heard me talk about Northern Medical, Fayette College, the Performing Arts Center now, Dragon Springs, all of the projects that the Falun Gong community has brought to the city of Middletown and the surrounding area. This is another company that creates, manufactures food out of Canada, introduced to us, through our relationships in that industry. And they're looking for a site now to manufacture food here. And this one also, Project Trifecta. So Polycraft, that is the company that came to the city of Middletown recently, manufacturing really packaging for Jelly Belly, jelly bean candies and things like that. They're all over, they do stuff for Legoland and Disney and that type of thing. Well, within that industry cluster, they loved working with the partnership. They love their site in the city of Middletown. And they're telling some of their supply chain people, maybe, if it worked here for us in New York, maybe it can work for you as well. Project Trifecta is one of those projects that came out of the relationship with the Polycraft industry people. And here's another one, a clean energy one. We probably should have put this slide with the other one, but we do that. And you have manufacturers of specialized devices for clean energy production. This is a heavy industrial energy related project. So we did submit some sites that this would be good for. Some of those developers that you saw on slide 1 are interested in this on one of their sites. So that one may be coming forward too. And then on the expansion side as well, Aspire Brewery, and you all know Sunny Patel, Beer World, the kind of work that he does. Well, his brewery company is going to be open soon. We got to tour it last week. It should be open in a couple of weeks. It's a $12 million capital investment. It's a great place for people to gather and enjoy his beverages. And then the another expansion project that came out of another marriage, right? Michael Dorff, he came with City Winery, and now he wanted to do this milk factory project in the town of Montgomery. It's Walden. It's in the Walden area. But what we're helping them with, through their CFA process and their incentives and the like. But what's interesting about this is it's right on the Wallkill Walden rail trail, and it's right next door to the Lake Osiris Golf Club, which is now under contract with another developer to build boutique hotels and a spa and possibly some eateries there. So that corridor of our county that was sleepy, you know, as you
Sleepy
almost
for a while.
enter Ulster County,
Yeah.
is now going to be tourism destination. And it's kind of cool because Ulster County, their focus in economic development has been a lot of tourism destination projects, you know, with Rocking Horse Ranch and Mohawk Mountain House and, you know, the like. They have a lot of beautiful things with Woodstock and everything over there. So it's sort of another corridor of our county that we can generate sales tax, bring in new tourism destination projects. And then you all remember Pollock Talix. They were the creator, or they make the Oscar, you know, right here in town of Montgomery, near
17 J 47.
exactly, yep, 747. So they're planning a 30,000 square foot expansion as well. It's UAP now is the name of the company, but they bought it from Pollock Talix, but they're still going to use manufacture those types of statues and huge, what is this called? Like the,
Like public art.
Yeah,
Foundry.
that's it.
Yeah, foundry,
Yeah.
Sculpture.
so, yeah, it's really beautiful. Like you see it up on the screen now. Okay, and Big Shine Energy, manufacturer R&D, they're here now. R&D and distribution in the solar and lighting products space. They want to add another 10,000 square feet there. So the partnership, you know, it's sexy to read in the newspaper that all these new attractions are coming in. You know, it's very exciting. But we have some really good companies right now in Orange County that are doing well enough that they want to expand their operations, and that's what we're working on. So the reason why I have Connor here is because we're working on really focusing on new sectors. And I want him, because when we hired Connor to focus on other types of work, he really rolled up his sleeves and started working in these types of industry clusters. And I want to share with you, have him share with you some of the relationships he's building nationally with site selectors that are in this space.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. So on the screen, you'll see 3 high-end sectors that just about every community in the country is going after. Right? Life sciences, pharma, advanced technology, and microelectronics, which is played on by the supply chain or the semiconductor activity in upstate New York, the billions of dollars of investment. There's expected to be a whole semiconductor supply chain built out in the state that we're prioritizing before other counties are. And then clean energy products. We're seeing solar manufacturers of solar panels, offshore wind components, solar cells, clean batteries line up to invest in the United States, in New York State. There's rich federal tax credits, the Inflation Reduction Act, the green chips is all driving this kind of renewable manufacturing activity. And to attract these types of companies, you need relationships with what's people or professionals called site selectors. And site selectors are national consultants that will work with your Fortune 500s, your Fortune 100s, and advise the board of directors on where they should go in the world. So there's a conference every year called the Site Selectors Guild. All of these consultants come together with economic developers, right? So New York City had a contingent. I was there. The state of Texas, Tennessee, everyone is there trying to build relationships with these consultants who work with Volvo and BMW and Micron, right? We have a strong relationship with the site selector who cited Micron in Syracuse from Deloitte. So these consultants hold tremendous power in the real estate process. And the board of directors for these companies really trust them. I mean, they're experts across the world. I think there was a statistic they said in that room, it was like a 30-person board, the Site Selectors Guild. They are, this year alone, have contributed to around $150 billion worth of investment last year, 2022. Across the world. So really high powered consultants. And it's great to be there because we can build relationships with them because they're driving a lot of the project activity. So apart from building relationships, again, with the people who cited Micron and Volvo and Nissan battery plants and really high-end projects, they also shared some pretty interesting takeaways as to how counties or EDOs can set themselves apart in a competition that's really now global. I mean, we are competing with Asia, we're competing with the South and particularly Nevada on some of these really high energy, high economic activity driver projects. And time again, they stress the fact that workforce and labor, it used to be maybe toward the bottom of the list when you're looking at a site. Now it's the top consideration, if, maybe top three, but in some circles, the top. Particularly when we talk about pharma, when we talk about life sciences, and we talk about semiconductors, access to skilled labor is a prerequisite. So us at the partnership coming back from the Guild, we immediately sat down with Dr. Chris Young, who's dynamic, who sees the vision for the college being a driver of workforce development, the driver of connecting with communities to make sure we have a feeder of talent, talent that can enter the marketplace quickly, not 4-year degrees, but credential programs and 2 year degrees, which companies are now kind of gravitating toward the community colleges because they can be more nimble. There's less higher, bureaucracy they have to go through. So workforce top priority, it always is, but now more than ever, we need to kind of tell our story a little bit on our labor. What's our story within 45 minutes, and how can we talk to a Volvo or a Micron and stay in the conversation?
ATN as well.
Faitian, who's also doing really innovative work in the med device and in the life sciences space. That's a partnership with some scaled life sciences companies that we can cultivate, so they have that feeder of talent. Because companies are now thinking not just how do I hire right now? What about 20 years? Like, what's your K through 12 look like? So I know that if I'm going to be here for generations, I have talent for generations. Prioritize infrastructure or be left behind. That was drilled into us time and time again. And not just water and sewer, but power. And we work closely with our utilities, but when we get over 10 megawatts, it becomes difficult to service some of these really infrastructure intensive projects. And when we talk about example, a Nissan battery plant, right? High end, 100% net zero. We're talking, they need 250 megawatts power. This is significant demand. And we need to kind of be on the cutting edge of how do we provide this, maybe not that threshold of power, but how do we provide 50 megawatts in a timely fashion for transformational economic development projects? Be data driven. So we can't anymore, not saying we do it, but EDOs across the world say, well, we have a great workforce. Well, now the site consultants say, okay, but show us the hard data. Because when they dive into the numbers, these consultants are going very deep. Again, K through 12, that's what they want to know. They want to know, how many welders do you have in a 45-minute radius? How many bachelor's degrees in STEM have you produced in the last 10 years? Really in-depth information that we're working on providing with SUNY Orange, Pattern for Progress, our partners, Steve Gross, the IDA. Interesting, ESG, so environmental social governance, was something that these site selectors hit on again, time and time again. And that is now this push, particularly coming out of Europe, because again, we do a lot of foreign direct investment leads, companies that want to come to the United States. These companies, the days of coming in and strong arming a community, specifically the sophisticated companies, is more or less over. They're now looking to, they want to be, the big fish in the little pond. They want to be, 100% net zero or pathways to renewable energies. They want to limit their impact on the community in a negative way and build relationships. And that's, again, a lot driven by Europe. The sophisticated companies are now prioritizing ESG, and we as the EDO can align our marketing and our approach to the goals of these companies looking to invest. They want decades-long community partners. Be memorable in site tours. This was interesting. So when you get a site tour as an economic developer, that's where you've been shortlisted. So we've been in searches where it's global, 80 sites across the globe, whittle it down to 10, and now the consultants start to visit you. Be memorable, meaning they do, 80 of these site tours. How do you differentiate yourself? And the story that they would tell is, it was a southern state. It was for a battery manufacturer, $1 billion project. They've done all, dozens and dozens of tours. What this EDO did, I think it was Nashville, Tennessee rather, they brought an ice cream truck right on the site that they were touring. Little things like that to remain, unique in the race that sticks in the company executives' minds when they go back to the board and say, okay, we looked at 80 sites, we whittled it down to 10. They're all kind of the same. No, that group brought an ice cream truck out. That was fun. So little things like that.
We'll bring him to Legoland.
And lastly, heavy power projects will continue to be prevalent in manufacturing in 2023 and beyond. So if we want to win the chip fabs of the world or the semiconductor supply chain, we have to prioritize power. How do we increase substation capacity, transmission lines, really plan for the next 10 years? Because if we can't offer 10, 15 megawatts within a few years, then, we're going to struggle to compete for some of these projects. But that's on our radar right now.
Take a pause for just a second. You have a
Yeah.
question, Legislator Lujan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I am really happy to see that the shift, in energy in terms of more, solar, more renewable. It's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that. Also, really glad to see the workforce development piece. That is very much in line with what we've been trying to push, particularly the last 4 or 5 years. SUNY Orange, has been obviously leading in that. One of the conversations that we've talked also a lot about, I've seen it, both Mr. Gross and Mr. Fioravanti, and we see it in our community members, is housing, right? So really important to make sure we have the energy, really sure that we have the workforce development. But housing, the biggest crisis that we have in the region is people who you want to work in those jobs can't even live here. They can't afford to live here. And let alone can they afford to go to get themselves educated and live here. And on the contrary, on the opposite side, you're seeing a lot of people who, unfortunately, because they can't live here, are trying to move. They're going to other states. They're going to Texas. They're going to Colorado. They're going to that. So, what do your experts propose in terms of how do we combine these wonderful projects with housing that actually allows those individuals to live and stay and continue to live here? Because we're 5-10 years behind on housing. What are we doing?
They're not proposing.
Okay.
They're telling us to propose.
Okay.
So- And they're looking at communities that do it. So we do have to address this, and we've been talking about this for decades. There's a lot of fears in Orange County. There's a lot of, home rule in Orange County, and now you have a governor that's, saying there's gonna be this much housing, and then you have Orange County municipalities that are saying, don't tell us to do this, or whatever that might be. I know Bill mentioned earlier that the IDA wanted to look into that. Jimmy, I don't know. I think they talked about that for years, right? Like having IDAs get involved in it. I think now is probably the best time to start considering
They're gonna
it.
change the youth tap,
Right.
looking to expand it. As you know, every time we incentivize a hotel, we got criticized.
Right,
Right, even though the hotel was on Stewart Airport, which was gonna help Stewart Airport
right.
expand business for everybody.
Yeah.
But, the world is full of critics.
Yeah,
And every time we try to do something, certain municipality leaders step in our way, right? They just canceled Illuminate Newburgh in Newburgh, which is unbelievable.
What?
Oh, yeah, they were illuminated.
Just canceled.
It's
So
a
we're
lot more
trying
complicated
to,
than a conversation that can be had here, but
Yeah.
I didn't interrupt you, so I got it. It's okay.
But you're also
It's all
talking
right.
about the city of Newbury, so that's why it's
That's part of the rules, though. Once one of us has the floor,
fair enough.
it's abide, okay? This isn't a conversation. It's my time. Thank you, all right? So you're right. We have to get all the municipal leaders. It's not my backyard, so Goshen doesn't want to change the name from affordable housing to whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Nobody wants it,
Mhm.
right? Nobody wants the people out on parole to end up in the cities. They want them to go back to where they were paroled from.
Mhm.
So
It's a problem. It is,
it's not gonna be solved.
no,
That's why just since January 1st to March 31st, 10,800 and change New Yorkers have turned in their New York license and got Florida license. That's just one state. And that's just 3 months. So until we
it's a
get
colossal
a
problem.
different atmosphere, until we get more projects like Micron,
Mhm.
and you get President Biden coming up here and not having a problem with 50-year pilots, 50-year pilot
Mhm.
for Micron, right? And we have to fight with our local senator to defend the volunteers that serve on our IDA board.
Mhm.
And they sit here and say one word about Micron and the amount of money that was spent incentivizing them. So getting people to come to New York and doing this on the river in Newburgh for the windmills, fantastic,
Mhm.
right? Renewable energy, we'll see what happens. But you gotta stop critics, no
Yeah.
critics, right?
Legislator Stenega.
Thank you. I'm gonna follow up on that. Is there any way to get these businesses who are looking at building to actually create a small community on the same property?
So I love you for that
Which
question.
is, I mean, and I've asked Phil and Steve this every single month for, I can't even tell you how long. if it was something where they actually created the housing for their workers, at least when they start up, obviously, you know, the chain would go that they would get married, they'd have kids, they would move into the communities, and it would be a rotation of that. So they would then start looking for the different towns or villages where they would want to live.
Mhm.
A lot of people are hesitant to just even come in and buy, not knowing the environment, because until you actually live in one of these towns and villages, you don't really get the full feel of that community. So this would actually benefit both of that, because while they're building their companies, they could also be building something that would be characteristically quaint and nice for their workers.
So those conversations have been had. Once with Amy's Kitchen, who was open to it. It's very complicated, as you know, might imagine, you know, because housing, but it certainly is, you know, you can almost see Hershey's did it, you know, if you went to Hershey Park. But, and also the conversation is not been out in the public yet, but there has been conversations with Legoland. So, you know, I don't know, the devil's always in the details, but boy, wouldn't that make sense? You know, to have housing for young people, right, that can afford, you know, even a different type, like the We Live model. I know We Work and We Live kind of got crazy out there, but, you know, sort of those models where young people like to gather and kind of, you know, communal live. There's a lot to that. We just haven't seen it here. Yeah.
So, you know, this isn't, it's not a new concept. It's been out forever.
It's been out
Ford
forever.
Motor Company did it, all the big ones did
Yeah.
it. They did workforce housing. It's part of the project. They bought enough property to do so. You know, that's something that these companies need to be looking at. I think we are now in a space with what you're describing here today and the globalization that is coming in, technology that's going to be here. We need to start having those conversations very frankly as to how are we going to have these companies not only just build what they need for themselves, but what they need to house their workers, have their workers there, and it's an easy commute. It's part of your salary, your living, it's live, work, life, work balance. You know, one other thing I want to mention is you mentioned the need for power. So we take a look at these projects and we're no longer site specific, but we are community specific, because that site that needs however many megawatts, gigawatts, whatever it needs, how does that affect the community? And we saw the warehousing go up in Newburgh, town of Newburgh, and we saw brand new telephone poles line the entire highway with new power. And what that's done to the landscape and what that's done for our environment and how we live here in Orange County. So we're looking at not just site specific anymore, but we're looking at what's the tertiary, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that you all have that in mind when these projects are coming forward.
Certainly.
To your point on the housing, it seems like now they're calling it this global competition for talent. Now states and companies are competing for a very similar age demographic and locational demographic of talent. So the communities that prioritize housing, prioritize quality life, I think the sophisticated companies that are looking to develop a campus-like setting, pharma type companies, would likely entertain conversations like that, because you're competing for talent that wants to bike to work and wants to walk to work, and wants access to cafes and this quality of life that now again the sophisticated companies need to provide to compete for this limited pool of talent.
I mean, I know they do it a lot, but even some of the areas that I've been in have similar to this, where there is not 1 inch of land anywhere. They are just putting houses and the buildings and the construction and everything that's going on. You're literally, you don't want to change the characters. If we have to start changing the character and we take every available piece of land and get rid of it, all the people who are here are gonna leave. You know, I mean, that's not why,
I don't
that's
know
not why.
to that
Well, I
extent yet, but I
think-
understand your.
Yeah, but I'm
sentiment.
saying that, you know, so there's gotta be a balance with it, and if they're putting the money into the buildings, I mean, they could make a really great little community that would even be cordoned off to where you're not looking at, you know, what they're constructing. And with them being all workers and stuff, like I said, as they progressed and moved in the company, they would then look at moving into the community, and you'd have that, you know, continuation of some of the older people leaving and moving into different housing and to raise their families and want to be part of the community and stay here.
You're right.
So brief pause, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow here, but we had a couple of questions, so if you'd like to continue.
No, it's awesome. No.
Oh, so yeah,
So just to focus on, we can be quick on this too, on BR&E. That's you. Go ahead. If you want to just, how we're trying to cast a larger net around companies that are here right now. We need to have these relationships. This Ball Corporation situation, it beat the crap out of us. I mean, like we laid awake that night. Steve and I have been talking, everybody's been on it. And the way we heard about it was because of a friend that called our office and said, hey, I got people from Ball, putting in applications in my company here. What's going on?
We've all
I'm
received the
calling
letters.
Steve.
and-
Steve goes over.
Yeah.
He says the parking lot's empty, Hallahan, and I'm like, I called Newhouse and then I called the DOL and they said they're not even on the list, saying that they're gonna vacate. We did everything that we could to just to get some intel, and then we just reached right directly out to them.
So
And-
have they come back positively and told you
No.
anything? So
No,
there's no real
No, we
information on the
don't,
street yet?
no,
The DOL doesn't
the
have it.
information on the street has been written to the supervisor of the town of Wallkill. So he and I double teamed them and it looks like they're leaving, Joe.
Okay.
No, it looks like, they said it so much in a written document that third quarter this year, end of third quarter possibly for, but that got us so upset that we had to figure out a way to be more proactive with business retention and expansion. And Connor and Sarah came up with this great plan that we're shocked at how quickly this is turning things around, but why don't you just briefly talk about what we're doing, and we're only on the letter B, but.
yeah. Well, so of course, a lot of our time is spent building the relationship with the consultants on new projects. But the BRNE is really the backbone of economic development, and there's so many companies in Orange County, so many. So what we did is we went back in the Orange County partnership files 15 years, looked at all of our attractions, our expansions over that time, and we've segmented smaller groups within that list. So we're sending out, a mass email to multiple groups alphabetically. So we did one group last week, emailed 50 people. In 3 days, we got around 9 or 10 responses. We got 2 organic expansion leads, companies saying, yes, we need help, can you come? And then 4 site tours, companies saying, we want to build a relationship, can you come in and see what we do and walk the floor, and maybe we can talk about workforce and grants and in physical footprint expansion. So they're out there, and it's tough to reach all of these companies, just the sheer volumes. What we did is we're just going to keep emailing them and keep setting up tours.
Big Shine and Pollock Towers, they weren't even on our radar. That came out of this, that came out last week. And of them, so you had 3 tours, right? 3 invites in, but 8 responses.
Yeah.
And we're only on the letter B. So we did all companies in those groups, over a certain amount of people, like 25 to 50. Was your threshold 50 employees?
Yeah, that's right.
50 employees in different industry clusters, and it cost us nothing. It was an email that these guys drafted, something to entice them to respond, and they did. So we hope to see more of this connection, engagement. We'll work with the chamber as well and the county as well, because we've got to get in the doors of those buildings. What happens is when times are good, you're focused on those attractions. And we have so many companies right now in Orange County that are doing good work, and we're not, they're kind of falling under our radar. So we'll tell you more about that in our next report. But thank you for
Wonderful.
having us. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay. Anybody else? Excellent. Thank you both very much. Extremely informative as always.
Thank you so
And
much.
with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment. Excellent. Ilhan and Ramos. Thank you all very much for attending today.
I know you can pick up.